Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today it is the Turrfield Ebonies going up against the Pastoria Hydros. And as these two sides have a look at their opening hands, let's have a look at this tale of the tape between these two teams. With the Turrfield Ebonies, they're having a very slow start to the season, yet to win a series as they're currently sitting outside our top 5 and they desperately want to return to victory road for the third season in a row. Whereas for the Pastoria Hydros, they're currently sitting in second place, and with a win here today, they can put themselves on top of the leaderboard. So with that said, let us know in the comments below who you think's going to win this matchup. Will it be the grass decks? Will it be the water decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
And starting this match off, it is going to be the Lush jungle deck of the Turrfield Ebonies laying out their Fomantis. It is going up against the Poplio from the Ruins of Hope deck for the Pastoria Hydros. But here we go, in our game 1 in our 3-game series, it is the Golisopod being pulled here for the Ebonies. They have got that Leaf Cape Pokemon tool in hand, which they choose not to use at the moment. They do send it over to the Hydros, who pull their big Melisada, and we can already see they've got the Brion and the Primarina in hand, but Poplio requires 2 energy to go on the offensive, and they cannot evolve them on their first turn. As the Ebonies have pulled the Wimpod, they immediately put that onto the bench. They don't want to have an empty bench at risk of losing their active Pokemon. They would automatically lose the game if that was the case, but they get the first energy onto the Fomantis, and with the Leafage, 20 damage here onto the Poplio. And the Hydro is now pulling their Tapu Fini, who is a basic Pokemon that doesn't evolve, so they immediately get this onto the bench. Same case for them as the Ebonies. They don't want an empty bench in case it were to cost them the game. Unfortunately, the Brion doesn't require an additional energy, so they can start setting up the Tapu Fini here and just go for this Wave Splash. 30 damage onto the Fomantis, cutting its health in half. And the Ebonies have pulled the Morlul. They've already got the Shinotic in hand, and they can now evolve that Wimpod if they so choose. Using this Leaf Cape adds an additional 30 health to the Pokemon that is wearing it, but they do have to be of the grass type. That's why it's only seen here in the Turrfield Ebonies decks and no other side, as it is going to be Morlul receiving its first and only required energy. However, Shinotic does require 2. Golisopod, who's just come online, does require 3, but this Leafage continues from the Fomantis. Another 20 damage onto the Brion here, bringing it down to 40 health, as it is the Rare Candy being pulled for the Hydros. We can see they've got the Sharpedo in hand, and they've got that Lily, and Lily would work fantastically with Primarina, as it does only work on stage 2 Pokemon, but also Primarina has this Melodious Healing that can restore 30 health from any Pokemon on the side of the Hydros who has taken damage, as they are all water types. But it is going to ride that Surf to wipe this Fomantis off the board into the discard pile, taking the first point here in our game 1. And as we always like to remind people, all 3 games count towards the leaderboard, as you get 2 points for each game you win in a series. You obviously want to get the clean sweep and maximize your points, as it is now that Shinotic coming online with that Flickering Light. It does do 50 damage, but it can also prevent the opposing Pokemon from being able to go on the offensive in the next turn. It is a coin flip determinant though. They don't put the leftovers on the Shinotic, just get the 50 damage onto the Primarina. They need to flip the heads, but instead they get the tails. They are unable to cut off this Primarina from going on the offensive, as the second Tapu Fini is pulled for the Hydros. They're still setting up that bench Tapu Fini. It does get its second energy, as that Melodious Healing continues from the Primarina. Another 30 health being restored, offsetting 30 of that 50 damage it took from the Shinotic, as it continues to ride this Surf, bringing Shinotic down to only 40 health remaining. It comes back over to the Ebonies, who do pull their Poison Barb. Now they can play that Mellow. It would restore the health of Shinotic back to full strength, but it has to discard any energy that are on it as well. With that said, it can still be played when it has no energy on it, as they do put the Poison Barb onto the Shinotic. They're trying for this Flickering Light again. Again, they need to flip the heads. Moment of truth for them, and this time they are successful. So this means Primarina cannot go on the offensive in this turn. However, that does not prevent the Tapu Fini if they were to choose to retreat the Primarina, but they can still use this Melodious Healing, so they are continuing to restore the health and to keep them on. They've also got that Lily, as they have just pulled their second Sharpedo. Now we're yet to see them pull the Carvana, so they can't get those Sharpedos online here. The Hydros are taking their time with their Ruins of Hope deck. They don't want to rush this. They're currently sitting in second place. They've dropped 1 game all season long. So they've had 6 games across 2 series here, and they've only lost 1 of those 6 games, as it is going to be that Tapu Fini moved into the active spot and with that Spiral Drain, it wipes the Shiinotic off the board as the Hydros take their second point, one more point, and they will take this game 1 with the Ruins of Hope deck and not drop a single point to the Lush Jungle deck. However, they have to contend with Tapu Fini being poisoned here. It is the second Mallow being pulled for the Ebonies. They get the second energy on to the Golisopod, but there's not much else it can do because it does require 3 energy. The Hydros have pulled their Pokeball though, so they are going to play it, get a basic Pokemon, and now we see the Carvanha in hand. They can get that online, and that is exactly what they do. They still have 1 free bench slot, as well as Primarina gets its first of 2 energy back onto it after having discarded them so it could retreat. That Melodious Healing we see restoring the health of Tapu Fini. They play the big Malasada as well, recovering it from that poison status condition so it doesn't have to contend with it anymore, and with this Spiral Drain, 60 damage, halving the health of Golisopod. Now it is the Ebonies pulling their own Pokeball, so they are going to play that immediately, and they are going to get their second Wimpod in hand here. And they do get that onto the bench. They've got the leftovers. This would take Golisopod out of discard range from the Tapu Fini. This could be crucial, as it does restore 10 health at the end of only the Ebony's turns, not in between both sides' turns here. But with this first impression, it will only do 60 damage, and that is going to leave Tapu Fini with only 40 health remaining. But as we said, there are those leftovers restoring 10 health for the Golisopod as it comes back to the Hydros, who pull their own leftovers as well, and they can still use this Melodious Healing from the Primarina to restore 30 health from all of their Pokemon that have taken damage. As we finally see that Sharpedo come online with that Crunch, does require 2 energy as well, but here is that Melodious Healing, restoring the health of both Primarina and Tapu Fini. Primarina's actually gotten itself back to full strength as well, as this Ruins of Hope deck are looking unstoppable at the moment. That Spiral Drain, another 60 damage. Golisopod has 10 health remaining. This is not good. This is not how the Ebonies wanted to start this contest. But this is exactly how the Hydros want to start their season, as they are looking to get back to Victory Road after missing out in Season 2. They made the Champions game in Season A1 of the PokeType League TCG, but there is another first impression onto Tapu Fini, bringing it down to 40 health. The Ebonies know exactly what's about to happen. There is nothing else they can do. This frees up the Hydros. Tapu Fini can go on the offensive. They just pulled their Professor's Research. They're not worried about that though. They're just worried about taking Game 1 in this 3-game series in absolutely dominating fashion as well. The Ebonies not able to get a single point on the board. But as we have our first table reset, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the action in the PokeType League TCG. And it is the Ebonies flipping heads for Game 2 as they're using their Ruins of Abundance deck. It's going to be the Tapu Bulu in the active spot for the Ebonies. It's the Alolan Vulpix for the Hydros in their active spot using their Luminous Frost deck. But here we go in Game 2, the Poison Barb being pulled for the Ebonies. Now Tapu Bulu takes 3 energy before it can get on the offensive. We can see that Serena in hand, so as well for the Ebonies, as the Hydros are going to pull the Alolan Ninetales already. Now Vulpix only requires 1 energy for this Call Forth Cold. It doesn't go on the offensive, instead it generates an extra energy for itself, and this is fantastic because Ninetales requires 3 energy. It can get online in the next turn, as the Ebonies have just pulled the Execute. They immediately get that onto the bench. It only requires 1 energy, but they are going to start setting up this Tapu Bulu. And it is the Alolan Sandslash being pulled for the Hydros here, but it is the Ninetales, the only Pokemon they can get online. They have no other basic Pokemon in hand. Now Ninetales does 60 damage to the opposing active Pokemon, but it does 20 damage with the Blizzard to every benched Pokemon of the Ebonies. This Pokemon can be an absolute menace because every point that is taken before a game ends counts toward the leaderboard, which is impressive. A team can actually take 4 points in a game. They only need to win 3, but to be able to take 4 maximizes their opportunity on the leaderboard here, as it is the second Execute being pulled for the Ebonies. They're trying to get the leftovers on the Tapu Bulu, but they can't do that. It's already got the Poison Barb. Ninetales having to contend with being poisoned now. And they do get that second Execute onto the bench, and they do get a first energy onto it as well, as that previous Execute has already taken 20 damage, being brought down to 30 health. It is from the promo set A, as they could draft from that, as we are still in the A series of the PokeType League TCG. as we're using the Pokemon trading card game Pocket. That is a lot of words right there. As the Blizzard takes Tapu Bulu off the board from the Ninetales, they've just pulled their second Vanillish as well. They still need the Vanillite if they want to get another basic Pokemon, but Ninetales is trying to run through this Ruins of Abundance deck all by itself. And it is that second Serena being pulled for the Ebonies. This is not good. Once again, the Ruins of Abundance deck, the Turrfield Ebonies not getting the cards they need. They get 30 damage onto the Ninetales with this rolling tackle, but Ninetales can wipe this active Execute off the board, but it will also take that benched Execute off the board, getting the 2 points for 1, and it is another clean sweep game. They have not dropped a single point to the Turrfield Ebonies in this series so far. They have taken the first 2 wins. They're not just going for the clean sweep, they're going for a master sweep. They're looking to not drop a single point through the whole series, as it is going to be the Ebonies once again going first. They need to bounce back in this game 3. They're using their Leaf Charge deck. They've got the Kartana in the active spot. It's the shoulder from the deck, the Brooklet Hill deck, sorry, of the Pastoria Hydros. But here we go in our game 3 between the Ebonies and the Hydros. The Pokeball being pulled for the Ebonies. This is fantastic. We can see the Dartrix that they've got in hand, and they've just pulled the Rowlet as well. They can get the Rowlet on the bench. By the time it comes back to the Ebonies for their next turn, they can evolve it. They've got the Beast Wall. This will reduce the damage that Kartana takes by 20, and it can only be used on an Ultra Beast when the opposing side are yet to take a point. As the Hydros pull their fishing net, we can see they've already got that Cloyster in hand, but they cannot evolve it on their first turn. So in the first 2 turns, there are no evolutions, as the leftovers are put onto the shoulder. It can go for this tackle, but it's not actually going to do anything to the Kartana, thanks to that Beast Wall that was set up by the Ebonies. It does come back over to the Grass types, who pull their Lusamine. This allows them to get 2 energy from their discard pile onto an Ultra Beast, but there are no energy currently in their discard pile. But there is the Dartrix coming online and the Leaf Cape going onto the Kartana. It only requires 1 energy. It's just got that 30 health boost thanks to the Leaf Cape, and this Thrash Metal 40 damage onto the shoulder, bringing it down to 30 health. And now it's the Pyukumuku being pulled for the Hydros. They immediately get that onto the bench. They don't want to lose this game, dropping only 1 point, as it is that Cloyster now coming online as well. With this Guard Press, it can do 50 damage. They're also going to play the Guzma. This gets that Leaf Cape off of the Kartana, bringing its health back down to 60. The Guard Press only doing 50 damage though, so Kartana will still be in this contest. But it does only have 10 health remaining. Cloyster will take 20 less damage in the next turn. That Thrash Metal does 40 damage regularly. As the Beastite now pulled for the Ebonies, this Pokemon tool can only really be capitalized on after sides taken points, because for each point they've taken, a Ultra Beast will do an additional 10 damage. But they're actually going to retreat the Kartana, getting the Dartrix into the active spot, doing 10 damage here. They don't want to drop a point here. They've not taken a point all game long, and they're trying desperately to take back this third one and maximize their damage and point count in this game. It is the Professor's Research played for the Hydros. They get the Shoulder, they get the big Melisada as well. The Shoulder's now online, getting its first energy, and the Cloyster with another Guard Press, 50 damage on to the Dartrix here. Again, it will take 20 less damage in the next turn. And it's now the Pheromosa being pulled for the Ebonies. All these Pokemon here currently on the side of the Ebonies only require 1 energy to retreat and 1 energy to do damage. Now this Jump Blue is 20 damage, so it's not actually going to do anything to the Cloyster, but it can also do 20 damage to one of the benched Pokemon, and it looks like they're targeting the shoulder, and that is exactly what they do. Cloyster taking no damage in the process, as the Hydros get the Araquanid out of this deck. And they get a first energy onto the Pyukumuku. It only requires 1, as these Guard Presses continue from the Cloyster, and those leftovers are going to get it back to full strength if it keeps taking 0 damage from the Ebonies. Cloyster chipping away at the Grass types. The Poison Barb being pulled now for the Ebonies here. And it is now Kartana getting the first energy back onto it. They retreat the Pheromosa. They've done retreats every turn since they've been able to. The Poison Barb now onto the Kartana. The Thrash Metal will only do 20 damage here to the Cloyster. They are trying desperately to chip away. They also want to get that Poison status condition onto it, but it is the Poison Barb being pulled for the Hydros. They can't put it onto the Cloyster. It's already got that leftovers Pokemon tool. Shoulder getting its second energy, the Guard Press, another 50 damage, and the Hydra has taken another point in this series. Again, they're going for that master sweep where they don't drop a single point all series long. Now, I'm not sure we've actually seen that in the PokeType League TCG before. I do not believe we have, but the Ebonies are choosing to move the Pheromosa into the active spot. There is that leftovers, restoring 10 health for the Cloyster, but the poisoning brings it back down to 70. And it is the rare candy being pulled for the Ebonies. That is of no use to them right now, but they can use the Lucamine to get energy onto this Pheromosa, which will also allow them to get an energy onto the Dartrix in the same turn. We can see the Lily in hand. That will only work on the Decidueye from this Leaf Charge deck, but with the Jump Blues, another 20 damage onto that benched shoulder here, as now it is Cloyster being brought down to 60 health. It's the Lana being pulled for the Hydros. This will allow them to get to switch a benched Pokemon from the opposing side, but they need a Araquanid on the board to do so. And that big Malasada does restore 10 health for the Cloyster, but it also cures it of that poisoning. They get a second energy onto the Pikamuku and another guard press, wiping Pheromosa off the board. The Hydros are 1 point away from the Master Sweep here, in the PokeType League TCG. No leftovers, restoring another 10 health, but the Ebonies, they've just pulled the Decidueye. They desperately needed that here. It's got 80 health remaining, and they immediately play the Lily. It can restore 60 health, but it's only going to restore 50 because that's all the Decidueye needed to get back to full strength. They get the second energy. With this sniping arrow, it can do 70 damage to any of the opposing Pokemon. They are not safe on the bench. They are not safe anywhere, but Cloyster has 80 health, so it can actually outlast one of these hits. But they are still targeting the Cloyster. It only does 50 damage to it though, keeping in mind that guard press reduces the damage it takes by 50. The Dewpider has been pulled for the Hydros. They immediately take that last bench slot as well, getting its first of 2 required energy. Araquanid does require 3. There's the guard press, 50 damage here onto the Decidueye, bringing it down to 80 health. Decidueye is just trying to get the first point. They could target one of the bench Pokemon. They could actually target the Cloyster now. It's only got 40 health remaining. The Ebonies have just pulled their Professor's Research. They play that immediately, and they do get the Rowlet. They get the leftovers out of their deck. They're going to play the Rowlet here onto the bench. If they get their second Decidueye, they could evolve that with the rare candy. They get the leftovers onto the active Decidueye. They get a first energy onto the Dartrix. They're trying to bring this back some way, somehow. Can they do it though? They're taking their time here. They don't want to rush this. They've got the sniping arrow. Now looking at who they want to target here. They're taking their time. And they do go with the Cloyster, who's finally been discarded from the board, and the Ebonies with this Leaf Charge deck have taken their first point of the game. The Hydro is now thinking about who they want to move into the active spot. Pikamuku with that in and out ability. If it is eliminated from damage from the opposing Pokemon, it does 50 damage back to them, but it is the Dewpider being moved into the active spot here as the leftovers restores 10 health for the Decidueye. Again, they're looking at that Lana. They can switch the benched Pokemon into the active spot of the opposing side. Well, with this Araquanid though, it does require 3 energy. And they are also going to play the Fishing Net. This will allow them to get a random basic Pokemon, which will be the Shoulder, back into their hand. And they do get that second energy here onto the Araquanid. It still needs one more turn though. However, they are going to get the Poison Barb. They want to offset or try and discourage the Ebonies from going on the offensive. And it is the second Pheromosa now being pulled for the Ebonies. They get that onto the bench here. Now, Araquanid can do additional damage if it's attacking a Pokemon that is a basic Pokemon as well, as the Sniping Arrow takes the shoulder off the board. The Ebonies are 1 point away from bringing this game back. They were down by 2 points. They need to score the next one to take the win here and not suffer a clean sweep defeat at the hand of the Hydros, who are trying to take their second clean sweep series in a row. It is the Lana though that is going to be played by the Hydros, and coming into the active spot, it is going to be the Rowlet. Rowlet only has 60 health. The Hydros with the dangerous claws, because Rowlet is a basic Pokemon, 120 damage. It is wiped massively off the board, and the Hydros hold on at the last moment to take the clean sweep over the Turrfield Ebonies, and this puts them well on top of the leaderboard, as next round they are going up against the Opelucid Frontiers, whereas for the Ebonies they drop to 9th, and next round they are going up against the Mellow Rumbles. But until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what you thought the best card was, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.